Welcome to the How to Hire podcast. I'm Matt Shore, CEO at StevenDouglas, and today I'm joined by Brendan Courtney, CEO of HealthTrust Workforce Solutions, and a personal mentor of mine whose career proves you can hire people that actually stay and grow with your business for decades. I think in today's market, most executives think it's impossible to get great talent to stay at their company long term and to grow their business. So we are going to discuss with Brendan how he hires to create the long-term mindset in the culture of the companies he leads. Welcome to the How to Hire podcast, where our focus is learning from great leaders about how they attract, cultivate, and retain top talent to build their businesses. I'm your host, Matt Shore, CEO of StevenDouglas. I've been in the recruiting industry for 30 years, and I've been running StevenDouglas for the last 20 on our growth journey. Over the many years in the recruiting industry, I've seen all kinds of things. I've seen companies that do an amazing job of becoming an employer of choice, where everybody wants to work there and nobody wants to leave. And I've seen companies do the opposite. Tons of turnover, hard to hire people, hard to retain talent because they're doing a lot of things wrong. The goal of this podcast is to give you access to exceptional leaders that have gotten it right and give you some take-home value as you're building your businesses. Today, I am thrilled to introduce one of my personal mentors here, Brendan Courtney, the CEO of HealthTrust Workforce Solutions, who was my direct boss at my previous company. And we've stayed friends here for over 25 years. And it's only fitting that our inaugural podcast would be with the guy that taught me pretty much a lot about what I know about culture building and hiring people. And, thank you for joining us here, Brendan, and thanks in advance for all your wisdom.
Hey, it's a pleasure and honor. Glad to be here.
And then also joining us today, down the coaching tree from Brendan Courtney here, is Matt Beck. He's the Senior Vice President over our executive search business at StevenDouglas. He worked for Brendan and myself over at our previous employer. He's been with me for 20 years, hired him almost right out of college. I would say I learned from Brendan, he's learned from me, and we've all learned from each other. So this should be a lot of fun. Matt shared with me, we have 90 years in the recruiting business between the three of us. So this should be a lot of fun.
That means we're all getting old.
Yes, and the oldest guys to my right and the youngest guys to my left, in case anybody was wondering.
So almost 40, almost 30, and 20.
And this is my entire leadership structure here over my 20-year career, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it should be fun. So let's get into it. So I'm going to start out with a little Q&A here. So Brendan, you've had an incredible career over the last 40 years, only 2 companies, which is pretty amazing these days. But it'd be good to give the audience a little context about your current company, what it looked like when you got there, what it looks like today, and what some of those challenges have been along the way as you've been building the business.
So I've been here for 12 and a half years. It's been an incredible journey. When I first got here, HealthTrust Workforce Solutions, we were literally a couple hundred employees and a couple $100 million. We've since, in the last 12 and a half years, we got as big as, through the COVID insurgence of the healthcare staffing industry, we did almost $6 billion in revenue. We've got a top 20 healthcare staffing company, and we're one of the top healthcare MSPs in the industry. Went from a couple hundred employees to, we ballooned up to as many as 1,800. But just given the right sizing of the industry as we've come out the other side of COVID, right now we're going to do a little over $3 billion this year, and we've got a workforce of about 1,200 people.
That is absolutely incredible.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch, and obviously doing a little work with you guys and knowing so many people that followed you there from our prior company. And, it'd be great to, maybe give everybody a little bit of a high level kind of maybe overall philosophy as you think about like culture building, talent, attracting talent, growing talent, retaining those folks, and really maybe also a little bit about your leadership style.
So as you guys know, I grew up in the business. I worked the desk. I went from working the desk to being a manager of people. Then I became a manager of more people. And that, to me, I think that's really, really important that I grew up in the business. And I think as you're building a team, it's really important that you hire other operators. If you look at my leadership team, which with the exception of one person getting promoted, I still have the same leadership team that I put together between 10 and 12 years ago, which is just awesome. But each one of them grew up in the business. They're all operators. They all, again, they grew up in the business. They understand the business, which I think is really, really important, because as you're trying to lead people, to me, if you haven't done what you're asking people to do and appreciate the importance of, especially in our business, which is so operationally focused, that it's a lot of little things that add up to big results, and that if you haven't grown up in the business and you don't appreciate it from an operational standpoint, you might cut corners, and like that's the kiss of death in our industry. And so, to me, again, it's hiring operators and then creating an environment where, to me, a couple things. One is it's okay to disagree, because like that's where some of the best decisions come out of. And I also think it's really, really important to create a culture where it's okay to fail. And that like failing doesn't mean that you failed. Failing just means you made a mistake on your way to doing the right thing. And that that's the culture we've created. And as goofy as it sounds, like I knew when I came to work for HealthTrust Workforce Solutions that we had an opportunity to, and I've said this for the last 12 years, to build something really special. And you know, we've created an environment, we've created a culture where people, they want to come to work here. We don't have a lot of turnover in an industry that's as you guys know, riddled with turnover. We've defied that, and we've got a really stable company. We've got a company that people like to come to work for. We create an environment that, I'm really proud of the fact that we've got a bunch of young people that have worked for our company for 7-8 years, and they might be in their 7th or 8th job of growing up inside the company. And so, create a culture where of high performance, where it's okay to disagree, but it's also okay to fail on your way to doing the right things.
Oh, that's great.
Awesome.
Really great advice. And having worked directly for you, and Matt can attest to this as well. He does make it kind of fun. Brendan is he's a guy that likes to work hard and play hard and keep it light. And Matt can probably share some stories, but the accountability factor, you could have fun doing your job, but at the same time, you better be ready with the answers if Brendan had some questions, or if we had a meeting coming up, or some sort of review. It's really important to be accountable for the results. And if you say you're going to do something and you work for Brendan, you're probably going to need to make sure you actually do what you said you're going to do. And if you didn't, you better have a really good reason for it. I see you smiling over there, Brendan. But
Well, it's the old adage, like you have to inspect what you expect. And like we all grew up that way. And we hold each other accountable.
Well, I remember when I first got my promotion back at our old company, Spherion at the time, which became a couple different names. Remember when I first got promoted, I flew up to Baltimore to meet with you to get the vote of approval to take my first leadership role. After I got the role, I remember calling one of our colleagues and MDs in another part of the country. Won't mention the name, but I had asked, what am I getting myself into, and what do I got to do? How am I going to be successful? And what are the most important things that I don't do? And I remember clear expectations. Know your business, know your numbers. If you're not sure on something, be authentic, be honest, don't lie, and work hard, and he'll treat you good. And all those things happen. I remember that, but I remember that first call I had with that MD that told me what most importantly not to do, and it stuck with me all the way through.
So one thing that stands out for me about you is there's people that I hired at the old firm that still work for you now at a new company. There's a lot of folks I placed with the old corporation, with Spherion Corporate, that kind of you brought along to be a part of your support services team and your leadership team, your direct reports as well. And tell me a little bit about why you think so many people followed you to HealthTrust from Spherion and all the different names that it was after that. Right. Tell me a little bit about why you think those folks followed you.
So, like, one of my management philosophies, it's funny, but when I first got out of college and I went to work for 3M and I was going through the sales management training program, one of the videos that we watched as part of that training was Zig Ziglar. And if you guys have ever read a sales leadership book, it was written by Zig Ziglar. And I was 22 years old, and I remember him saying that you can get whatever you want out of life by helping other people get what they want out of life. And at 22 years old, I thought that was pretty cool. Didn't quite understand what it meant, but it stuck with me for my entire career. And as I matured as a leader, like I realized I could get whatever I wanted out of my career by helping other people get what they wanted out of their career. And I've lived that, I've breathed it. It's the way it's my leadership philosophy, and that, you know, I was able to attract a lot of really, really talented people. You know, we talked about how we were going to build something special, and we have, and that, you know, I created an environment where, again, I hire operators that know their job really, really well, and I give them the autonomy to do their job. We have leadership meetings where it's okay to disagree while you're in the meeting, but when we walk out of that meeting, we're all arm in arm, lockstep on what we're going to do. And like I said, we failed plenty of times, but it's all in the spirit of us continuing to get better. For us to be easier to do business with, we focus on. I did this while we were at Spherion, and I've done it again while we were here. You know, one of our big mantras and the culture of our company is operational excellence. We do everything really, really well, and as long as everybody's like directionally managing their day-to-day in that fashion, they have the autonomy to run their business like it's their business. So here we are 12 years later, and we're still doing great.
That's great. Well, you'll love this because I'm 55 now. When I won the 40 under 40, they ask you a series of questions that you answer. And what's your favorite quote? What do you think my favorite quote was?
You get whatever you want out of life by helping other people get what they want out of life.
Yes, sir. And you know, look, we're really blessed, the three of us, to be in an industry where the more people you help, like the better you do, the more success you have, right? Like,
Yep.
you know, when you get to wake up every day and your job is to help people find better jobs and to help companies find great talent so they can succeed, you know, it's a really great recipe for having a lot of, you know, enjoyment of your job and really seeing a lot of, I mean, look, hiring Matt Beck right out of college, right, and seeing him succeed at the former company and then bringing him along here, and having him, you know, be on my executive leadership team and lead a big team across the country and have the success he had. I mean, that for me, that's what it's all about. It gives me a lot of joy, and I'm really proud of him.
Well, I even say, yeah, as I think back to some of my best personal clients and clients that I've brought to the firm over the years, are people that were in transition at one point, weren't clients. They were people looking for work that I would go out of my way to try and help, even not to make money or generate a fee, but it was, hey, let me think of some clients, let me think of some investor back, you know, some private equity firms or people that I can make an introduction out of the sake of just doing the right thing, because they always took care of me and hired people from us. And so I do the same, and I'm doing it right now as we speak with somebody, and it always pays dividends. And that's not what you do it for, but there's the result, and it's awesome.
Well, you know, it's funny. All of our old boss and mentor, Carl Wright, he used to talk all the time about how we were in the favor business, and that you make money off of some favors, but you just do the right thing and you do favors for everybody. And it's a what goes around comes around world and life, and that we learned it from one of the best.
Oh, without a doubt. I was actually going to ask you about your early mentor in this business because, you know, again, you talk about a coaching tree, right? And I feel like it all started with Carl, right? And trickled down to you, trickled down to me, trickled down to Matt, and now trickling down to his team. You know, talk a little bit about his early influence on your career and that business you guys built up there. And I mean, I was, you know, because we were both acquisitions of the same big public company, I was always just in awe of the culture you guys built up there, the team, the longevity, the camaraderie. I mean, it was unbelievable to watch you guys.
We had fun. That's where we learned it. You know, it's funny, but when my kids were little, when I would drop them off at school, like as they were getting out of the car, it was always be good, be nice, try as hard as you can, but most of all, have fun. And I think if like that carried on. But yes, the culture that Carl created, and you know, the sense of team that we all belong to. You know, I would tell you over time, I've had some great bosses who have been great mentors, and I've had some really bad bosses who, you know, what I needed to take out of them was like how not to be a bad boss. And so I had a little bit of both over my career. But ultimately, in the 30 plus years that I've worked for people, I've had some great bosses that have also been great mentors. But again, there have been a couple of years here and there where I didn't have such great bosses, but I learned as much from them on what not to do as I did from the good bosses that taught me how all the right things to do.
I can say the same thing from my early days at Price Waterhouse. You had the folks that you wanted to emulate, and I said to myself, "Gosh, if I'm ever in a leadership role, I'm going to treat people just like that person did," and I hope I do today. And then there were a couple people I thought, "Gosh, if I'm ever like that, I'm going to feel really bad about myself," because I would see how some people treated people, and it just didn't make any sense to me. I didn't know what they got out of it, but
So Carl's dad, his name was Mel, and he had a great saying, and my kids say it all the time to this day, and that is, it doesn't cost extra to be nice.
does not. We say it all the time. It's free. It's free, and it feels pretty good, actually.
Yep.
Feels pretty good. And and when we talk about company cultures, it's interesting because I talk about this all the time internally and when we're representing clients, right? Because we work with all different kinds of businesses, big and small, with different types of leadership approaches, and again, some amazing cultures and some not so great cultures. But I love the saying that the fish smells from the head down, right? And it's like it starts kind of at the top. If the CEO, founder, whoever treats people a certain way, then they attract other leaders that tend to treat people the same way, and that just kind of keeps going down the hill in a negative way. And it's the opposite, right? If you have you have the right values and feelings about people and what culture should be and how people should be treated and what an environment should look like, that can really cascade down as
bet.
well. And
Well, look at you guys. It starts with Steve. It's transcended to you, and now to Matt. Like, you guys have a great culture based on the leadership of the company that started the whole thing.
Yeah, and I always talk about culture when I do orientation with every new employee, and I spend the actual first 15 minutes talking about values and ethics and culture and collaboration and how we expect people to treat each other internally and externally. And what I share with them is, look, my job is to set the tone for the right kind of culture and how people should behave and that sort of thing. But it's incumbent on them, right, as stewards of the culture. It's bottoms up and it's top down, and it's everything in between. And if everybody's committed to a great culture, right, then it's going to be a really great place to work, and everybody's supporting and encouraging each other. And I would like to talk. When I joined our company, it was 23 years in business. We're now 42 years in business, and it was like 15 people. Now we're hundreds of people, right? And going from being kind of a local boutique firm to more of a national firm with people spread all over the country, and going from 15 to hundreds has been challenging and fun and exciting, and made a lot of mistakes and learned a lot along the way. And I think we do a lot of things well, but always learning. Tell me about going from hundreds to over 1,000 employees, and then also if you could weave in, as the business becomes bigger and broader and more spread out, and then something like COVID hits, and all of a sudden you got remote work and hybrid work, and people don't want to come to the office anymore. They couldn't come to the office for a while. Right. I mean, how does that affect culture? How does that affect like culture building and the ability to continue to influence and keep that culture going, the same as when everybody was together all the time?
So when we first embarked on the journey that we have here at HealthTrust Workforce Solutions, our goal was to create a sustainable, repeatable business model. And if you do that, like you'll make mistakes, but you'll make mistakes the right way. You learn from them, you build off of them. Operational excellence being the backbone of who we are and what we do. We did just that. We created a sustainable, repeatable business model. And so, the beauty of our industry and the simplicity of our industry is that it's transactional. And so the more business that you've got going through the machine, you need more people to help process all those transactions. And so if you have the right culture, if you have the right repeatable business model, you're able to scale up and scale down, which is ultimately what we ended up doing. And that, I was blown away at the fact that we went from a couple $1 billion, that we literally quadrupled the size of our business with people working off their kitchen tables during COVID. It was just unbelievable. We got really, there were some scary moments. I remember talking to Jennifer Shemtoff, who you guys know, our CFO, a couple of weeks before, all the COVID hit the fan. And we needed to buy PCs for everybody. And our IT guys were saying, well, hey, if you don't buy these laptops in the next like couple days,
You're going to be gone.
they're going to be gone. And so I said to Jennifer, like, we can't afford to do it, but we can't afford not to do it. So we went out and bought like 800 laptops for everybody. And they put a production in place where they were imaging our IT guys were imaging the laptops. They were taking people's monitors off their desks and meeting them downstairs in the parking lot and giving them their new laptops and giving them all their personal items off their desks. And like so we didn't do anything for a couple months because it was the beginning of COVID, but then in response to COVID, like it was nuts. And, you know, like I said, we were doing it through WebExes and we were doing it through conference calls, and people were working off their kitchen tables, and like not very many people had home offices back then. And what we did and how we did it and the response of our people was just incredible. And like I said, like we did over $6 billion that one year. And it felt great because the problems that we were solving from a healthcare staffing perspective, like we saved a lot of lives. We touched a lot of lives. You know, we helped in one of the most critical challenges that the healthcare industry had, and we were right there front and center helping make it happen. So it was very rewarding. So since then, we've tried to bring people back in the office. We've, with fits and starts, we actually made the decision the end of last year that we decentralized everything. So we've still got people in our corporate headquarters. We went from, like, we've gone from having a little over a couple 100,000 square feet of office space to now we're going to run the business out of about 20,000 square feet of office space. And we've got people, again, decentralized and working from home, working in a hybrid fashion where they come in the office a couple days a week. But our culture is as strong as it ever has been. The fact that we still have people, like our phone rings off the hook from people wanting to come to work for us, that even at a time where the industry's struggling a little bit right now, you know, we continue to be a place where people want to come and help us create this cool company. And like I said earlier, like we were going to build something special, we have, and here it is 12 years later, and it's still special.
That's great.
Awesome.
You know, and in most industries, and I'm sure with your business, I see it with our business, is, you know, when you're a leader in the industry and you're succeeding, right? Your salespeople are getting called, your recruiters are getting called, your best people are getting called by competitors. You know, what's causing them to stay and turn down those phone calls and, you know, the opportunities to potentially leave and join a competitor?
Great question. You know, I think about, and we all admire our sports world, and I think about the old Steve Walsh, who was the coach of the San Francisco 49ers. And, you know, he was there for the Joe Montanas and all the years that they won those Super Bowls. But he used to take it as he enjoyed the fact that he spurned all these other coaches that went out into the NFL and became successful. Like actually Andy Reid's probably the last guy that would attach himself to Steve Walsh. But that, like, I felt that way. And like when we grew up at Spherion, like it was a badge of honor for me. Like it's funny, but like I would set goals at the beginning of the year, and they weren't personal goals. Well, they were, but they weren't. It was like I always had a goal on how many of my employees would make performance for them. Yeah. And I worked really hard to have everybody overperform, because to me it was a badge of honor to get as many people as I could to, you know, our President's Club performance forum. And I felt that, like I've always felt that way. And, you know, I've always been proud of the people, and you guys are two proteges that have gone on to be like super successful. Like I view that as like a badge of honor. Like I'm really proud of that. Like I love the fact that our industry is one where we get to compete with each other, but we're still all friends, and we're all, you know, patting each other on the back and enjoying each other's success. And that, you know, as I was building the team of folks that helped me run HealthTrust, you know, I told them all, like, if we do this right, we're all going to have big jobs, but your title's not going to change. Like, I can't give you another title. Like, you're the VP of HR. Now, your HR organization is going to get a lot bigger than it is today, but that, like, it it's been really cool that like I hired all these guys. Now a couple of them, so Steve Wright and Jim Davis went from being my SVP of recruitment and operations, and now Steve's the COO, and Jim went from, managing the MSP business to he's now our by title our Chief Revenue Officer. But other than those two, everybody's title's the same as when I hired them 12 years ago, but their jobs are so much bigger than they were. And that was what we had. Like, that's the only thing I had to sell. Like, hey, like, I can't. You're going to get to grow, but you're going to get to grow because we're going to grow. And here we are again. It's 12 years later, and you look around the table, and it's the same group of people, which is really, really cool.
I'd even say he's being a little modest, thinking about all the different people that we worked with going back 20, 30 years ago who have moved on to different organizations as we've all departed our old organization years back. Think about all the people that have gone on to build companies, run companies, and continue to do what they do in this industry. It's really cool because there's a lot of them. And just like we're all sitting here today, I think we all keep in touch with so many of them, and we're still friends. And it's also unique in this industry because a lot of the people that come and work for us, they don't keep in touch with a lot of their old people, and it's pretty neat. So I think, again, it starts from how we all grew up in the business, and for me, it's with you guys. So
that's great. That's great. So maybe let's sum it up a little bit, right? So my goal of the podcast is our first episode is to give as much take home value. I feel like I've gotten a lot out of this already, and I'm sure the listeners have as well. But if you had to sum up, 2 or 3 kind of, best pieces of advice, any leader, CEO, C-level executive, even a, kind of middle manager on the rise, if they're building a business, and they're learning as they go, like we all have, right? And they're making some of those mistakes. Like, what are some of those things that you would share with them, or keys to success, that you would kind of impart on them as they're kind of building their teams and trying to, become that employer of choice?
So I think it's really important, especially as you're developing your career, and it's as simple as it sounds simple, but it isn't always easy. And that is, you always have to do the right thing. I got really lucky when I was a young recruiter. I was placing the most senior guy I'd ever placed, and he was the head of commercial banking for a bank that I was doing business with. And when I checked his reference, so this guy, and this was a guy that I looked up to, like he was. Like, we went to church, like I would see him at church. And so this guy's name was Dick Oppitz. He's still alive. But like Dick was a guy that I always looked up to. And when I was checking a reference for Dick to place him in this job, the executive vice president that he reported to, he said, "You know what, Brendan, if I could sum it up to tell you about Dick Oppitz is the kind of guy that does the right thing even when no one's looking." And I was like 27, 28 years old when I heard that. And that has stuck with me my whole career. And, when you're a leader in a company, you don't always get to do, in fact, you have to make a lot of really, really tough decisions. And you have to make tough decisions that aren't going to be popular. But as long as your moral compass is that you're always doing the right thing, like if you're Dick Oppitz and you're doing the right thing even when no one's looking, it's easy to do the right things. Like that if there's one thing I tell my kids that it's the way, and I'm not a very good sleeper, but I can't sleep, like you couldn't sleep at night if you didn't always focus on doing the right thing. And I would say that you guys probably live your lives that way, and it just makes it easier.
I do a theme of the week every week for our team on our town hall meeting. And this morning's theme of the week was trust is everything. And the first line I said in there is, do the right thing and do things right. Right? Do the right thing and do things right. And it was actually my theme today. So it's just great that was the number one thing on your list. And look, I mean, if we're all living that way, right, it'd be a much better place. But any other things that you want to add kind of to that kind of takeaway list of things people should really kind of think about and try to implement further into their business?
So I think that, so I read a book out of college, and Rick Pitino, who turned out not to be the greatest guy in the world, but for a long time was a great coach. One of his first books, he talked about how he never let anyone outwork him. When he was a player, he worked harder than everybody else. When he was early on as a coach, and I was lucky enough to read that book. when I was young, and that like there's no replacement for hard work. Like the grind factor, and you knew it as an accountant. Nothing replaces really, really hard work.
Oh, that's great advice. And I want to thank you for being here today. This has been a great conversation. And, we'll continue it on the golf course for sure. But thank you for being here. Thanks for sharing your wisdom with everybody.
Thank you, Brendan.
Matt Beck, thank
More
you.
than a pleasure for me. This was fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And Matt, thanks for joining us as well.
Absolutely.
I want to thank the audience for tuning in today. This was the first of many. We're going to be doing these podcasts once a month with some great leaders. We already have some amazing CEOs of some of the best companies down here to start in South Florida, and then we're going to move it around the country. If you like this episode, go ahead and subscribe and maybe even leave a comment. And I would say, I'd encourage you to go to the StevenDouglas LinkedIn, link in with us so you can follow some of the stuff that we put out there as it relates to thought leadership. Go to the StevenDouglas website, www.steven.douglas.com. And we look forward to further conversations. I really do hope this was helpful, and I hope that you can implement some of these things in your business and have some great success and have some fun doing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.